Please listen carefully.
Well, hello, universe, and welcome to the Optimist Daily Update. I'm Kristy Jansen.
And I'm Summers McKay.
We're part of the team behind the Optimist Daily, making solutions the news. We bring you reader-funded solutions news every day in order to change the tenor of news media, social media, and the direction of your day to help get us all focused on solutions.
7 days a week, we publish positive news stories written by award-winning journalists and delivered online to your inbox and through our social channels. And also, we are sharing these solutions in a commute-worthy, walk-worthy, home office-worthy, do it during physical therapy-worthy podcast. Today is Wednesday, the 10th of November, 2021. Hello, my friend. How are you?
I am well. I'm feeling pretty productive now that we've got daylight savings and I'm taking an extra hour to get up early to do personal writing, which feels good.
Yeah.
But I need to ask you how you're doing, because I know that yesterday you did something really hard, and I want to help you share
All right.
how you are.
So as many of you listeners know, we had a beloved family dog, an Australian Shepherd named Cleo. And she came to our home. She'd been part of my children's lives for longer than she was part of mine, but she became mine about 5 years ago. And she battled lymphoma. And so for about 18 months, we have been helping her through that battle. But unfortunately, yesterday, we had to say goodbye. And it was possibly the hardest decision that I have made, because the rounds and rounds of chemo that she was on, they had become increasingly less effective, and the amount of time that she felt well after each treatment was reducing. And we got to a point where her bad days outnumbered her good. So it is heartbreaking. I am deeply grateful to the caretakers at her veterinarian hospital, and all they have done for her, and also how they helped myself and my older daughter as we said goodbye to her yesterday. I mentioned in the pre-meeting, it was a very peaceful and very gentle setting. We were in the back, living here in Austin, Texas. We have a very rural vet. And so we were back by the stables with the goats and the chickens and the, sheep and all the livestock. And we're currently being treated by the hospital, and, sat on a blanket, and it was a beautiful evening, late afternoon, evening, and we said goodbye. So I am tender today. And I know we've written articles on the Optimist Daily about understanding grief and understanding loss, but it's definitely, I am tender today. And I joked about listening to the pod during physical therapy, because today I was in physical therapy, sort of healing from making a human. And I didn't want to talk to anybody. And I didn't want to, I barely wanted to even talk to my physical therapist. So I actually listened to us, Kristy, and listened to our podcast. So
I hope that it helped you feel a little bit more like yourself or positive.
Yeah, it did. And hearing your voice, and I listened to the episode with Ariel and with Amelia. So hearing all of your lovely voices made me feel like I was with friends.
Well, I'm glad. I like how you described yourself as tender. And I think just being gentle with yourself, and like when you told me about what had gone on yesterday evening, and you sent me a picture of Cleo together with Tucker, who's my pup. They used to be great friends when they lived in the same state. I just feel so sad about that, but also for you. But also I feel like there's a poignancy to it. It's not all sad, because she was a light, just a bit of joy for you and for everybody. And I think a lot of people can understand the feelings about a pet, even if even though it feels embarrassing sometimes, because we have such deep feelings for the animals that we care for or who are in our lives, our friends. But anyway, grief is grief. Grief is
grief. And, being comfortable with acknowledging grief, having empathy for our feelings and our emotions allows us to process them in a more holistic way. And So being that you guys are all probably listening to the Optimist Daily Update going, really, ladies? Like, this isn't very optimistic. But I think the reason that we chose to share this and why I think it's important to share this is that optimism isn't rose-colored glasses. It is community, collaboration. It's relying on friends and family and those in our community who can come together to help make this world better. And making the world better actually means helping friends get through rough times too.
Yeah. And vulnerability is really strength, right?
Yes,
and so
100%.
And part of what our mission is about is helping people reconnect to the solutions that are really opportunities embedded in crisis.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. And
exactly.
so how do we take a challenging situation and learn from it, change how we respond to it, change how it responds to us? How do we turn it into something that will bring something positive? And I think why don't you talk about your article first, Summers? Because
I love it. My article, which I think we can take lessons from on how to turn any sort of challenge into productive energy. But my article specifically talks about anxiety. And I will tell you, I did have like a full on, like, after I got through yesterday and didn't cry with my older daughter, was tender and sad with her, but didn't break down. And then I was strong for Brennan. And then when I had a moment alone, just like melted down. And my husband actually came and found me because he figured out I was pretty sad, but I was hiding my sadness. And he was like, you got to knock that off. Let's get a hug. So this story, I think, actually sort of fits very beautifully with the experience that I've had. So this headline reads, 5 ways a neuroscientist turns anxiety into productive energy. Neuroscientist Wendy Suzuki says that 90% of individuals suffer from what she calls everyday anxiety. This condition is different from clinical disorders and instead kind of manifests in ways that we're all familiar with, like difficulty focusing, discomfort in social situations, interrupted sleep, anybody? Worries about families, finances, or future. It's basically everyday anxiety, right? Most of us get this. And it does require coping strategies. But these strategies involve not only trying to stop the anxiety, but rather catching it, turning it into something that serves us. So here's how we're going to do this. First and foremost, adopt the activist mindset. Now, we've all been told the key to success is resilience, but the term can be vague. We're not really sure what that means. Activist mindset, which is thinking about emotional traits and previous experiences that can provide you with insights, confidence, or creativity to tackle a current challenge. Next, and this is kind of what happened to me yesterday, pay attention to the negative feelings. Don't sweep them under the rug, folks. Give negative emotions and anxiety the attention they deserve as valid human emotions that will help you not only move past, but also appreciate more. Turn worries into to-do lists. I love this one because it involves putting everything down, but basically.
Well, it's a way of kind of putting structure around the chaos.
Exactly.
And then you just do the first thing. And as you cross things off your list, it gives you a sense of empowerment.
Yeah, exactly. Then there's get off your phone. If you can hear in the background, my smart speaker is currently announcing that all of my Amazon packages are here. So get off your phone. And, it's chicken and egg, right? The constant stimulus of your telephone isn't helping anxiety. So take time away. Journaling, meditation, the jam. Cooking, right? We talked about cooking with Ariel yesterday. Seek empathy from your anxiety. I love this tip the most, Kristy, because it is about understanding when you're anxious. Sometimes the very best thing you can do is go do something kind or gentle for someone else. Reaching out to someone who may be in a similar experience can lift your anxiety. I love that. Doing for others.
And I think actually same thing for if you feel isolated or alone. Yep. Reaching out and not looking for someone to take care of you or someone to come into your isolation, but rather going and offering. There's something about that.
Yep.
It lights up those dopamine centers.
It's that moment of how can I help you, and the effort of helping someone else can lift your soul.
And it takes you away from being a victim to being an actor, a empowered person.
Yeah. So Go ahead and read the story. It gets more in detail with tactics and ways of executing each of these tips. But I love this article. And for someone who is feeling a bit tender, this is a great article to read and share. Kristy, what are you into today on the Optimist Daily?
I'm also talking about health and wellness and well-being, but in a slightly different setting. The headline that I wanted to focus on today on the pod from today's headlines reads, "The Botanical Bus Bridges a Medical Gap for California Farm Workers." And this is a woman, Jocelyn Beretta, who is a descendant of a Native American and Mexican migrant farm worker. And she's the owner of something called the Botanical Bus. And what she does is she takes her bus and she goes to and visits farm workers in the fields, particularly on different wineries around Napa Valley. And through this, she's extending counseling and medical care to on-site farm workers. And it's not necessarily the traditional medical care, but rather somewhat more plant-based herbal medicines, masseuse attention, acupuncture, herbalists, translators, people who are going to give supportive care and somewhat non-traditional medical services to a population that is really in need. According to 2020 COVID-19 farm worker study, more than 59% of all farm workers in California do not have any health insurance. And the reasons behind that is both the cost and the distrust in authorities, government, and the whole medical system.
Yeah.
And it's a problem because these are people in our community. And just like as we learned with COVID, just because you're healthy doesn't mean and somebody else is not. I mean, everybody's health is impacted by people being unhealthy in our society. So the issue has become even more urgent and exacerbated by the pandemic. These are people who raise our food, who pick our food, who get it to the grocery stores. We're really dependent on these folks who are they're sort of marginalized from and outside of the traditional medical environment. So the Botanical Bus is trying to bridge that. They also are focused on giving education about different common conditions like diabetes, which is a really awful one that so many people in this population are going to be suffering from, heart disease, other things. So workers can rotate free of charge through the different stations while enjoying a free lunch of rice and beans and tortilla chips and tamales. A lot of carbs there. Just
They're
thinking about it.
working hard. They don't need to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't need to be keto.
But they bring in other practitioners and it's an interesting complementary medicine, I guess that's what the word I was talking about. It's complementary medicine, which often speaks really loudly to Latinx and indigenous populations. So the Mexican farm workers treated by a conventional medical provider are twice as likely to also be treated by a traditional healer in the same year. So it's a way of just connecting with people where they are and bringing health and healing. Moving forward, the Botanical Bus is hoping to not only expand its service to farm workers, but also partner with other county health centers like West County Health to bring the service to rural elementary schools as well. And, I take for granted that I have information at my fingertips because I'm a netizen, as they say. I can look up information, but not everybody has that kind of facility or ease. And so it's good to learn how can we bring healthy and healing practices.
Yeah, I think this story is super valuable also as a reminder to our readers, right? But obviously we would assume that our readers and our listeners, optimists and emissaries, are obviously highly connected, right? They're on social, they're receiving stuff by email, they're getting information, but there is an information and education gap, especially when it comes to health and wellness. And so having a bridge, having a conversation in the language that is most familiar, and I don't just mean like the words, the vernacular, but the experiential language of these communities, I think is so valuable.
Yeah, like the traditional medicine has had a problem, and as we've become more regimented and efficient in how we look at everything in our world, The relationship between the healer and the patient, the patient becomes just like a collection of symptoms to be treated instead of a whole person.
Instead of
instead of a human being. And so this kind of reaching out, meeting people where they are, and having these complementary, oftentimes more traditional or indigenous remedies, which are more approachable and easier to connect with. I think it's an important piece.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, that is just 2 of the amazing stories on today's Optimist Daily. As you guys know, we release 10 positive news stories every single day of the week. You are getting good news from the Optimist Daily. Other stories today include Philadelphia will no longer pull drivers over for low-level infractions. How to prep your pup for winter. 4 simple ways to reduce your everyday waste. And a teen saved thanks to domestic violence hand signal circulated on TikTok. We almost talked about this story, but realized it'd be like a little difficult to fully explain the hand signal. But please go look at this article. Please look at the way that we are making the world better through social media education and information. What else, Kristy? What else do we see?
So there's an article about mastering the art of receiving compliments and why that's a good thing to do. An elite group of countries is already carbon negative. Interesting to look at that. Spain is fighting childhood obesity by outlawing unhealthy food ads directed at kids. No more sugary cereals.
Tony the Tiger, better
Tony the Tiger, not on TV.
Yeah, exactly. Tony the Tiger, not on TV. Better get some fiber, Tony.
And Ireland will become the 15th European country to ban fur farming. That is all for our top headlines today on the Optimist Daily, but there's that and more. Thanks everybody for listening to the Optimist Daily Update. We promise to keep sharing positive solution-based stories with ideas on how you can participate, get active, quell your anxiety by becoming an actor on the changing world stage, and help ensure that it's changed for the good. We promise to keep covering current events, current ideas with accurate, legitimate sources, and offering you information that we all need to chart new paths for all of us.
Thanks everybody for listening, and a special thanks to our emissaries. If you are not yet an emissary on the OptimistDaily.com, please become an emissary, and for as little as $5 a month, support reader-funded, independent, solutions-focused journalism. We like to do what we do, so if you can help us, we greatly appreciate it. Let's keep the Optimist Daily free to all who need it, supported by those who can. Thanks again, and we'll be back tomorrow with more solutions.